Now, welcome to another news from Naboo with Thor's Lightning Takes, and let's get right to the news.
So we're going to talk about Star Wars films again.
No Andor in this video, too, for today's new episode.
No spoilers,
so don't worry about that.
Deadpool 3 director Sean Levy is in talks to direct a Star Wars movie.
So that's like the 50th person in talks to do a Star Wars film? From recent rumors, or over the last couple of years, actually? I mean, who isn't in talks? Have they called you yet? I'm just curious.
I wouldn't tell you. I can't spread rumors.
You signed the NDA. You can't say anything. I get it.
Yeah, so he's discussing working on a Star Wars film after he completes work on the final season of Stranger Things, as well as Deadpool 3. Yes.
So another person with a lot on his plate, potentially, instead of somebody who's can go right into making it. Makes perfect sense.
He actually confirmed this himself on his Twitter account. I'll have the tweet up there.
Yeah, that's why we're kind of talking about it, because there's actual legitimacy behind it, instead of just, we heard from this person who heard from another person that they're talking to Lucasfilm.
The project's likely far off in the developmental future, because, like I said, there's a lot on his plate. He's directing at least 2 episodes of Stranger Things, the final season, because he's directed 2 from every season.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yep. And presumably this will be filming next year. Meanwhile, Deadpool 3 is scheduled for November 2024. So, yeah, this is another movie that's way in the future. But, of course, that doesn't mean it can't get written and things ahead of time, because the director doesn't generally do all the writing.
No, generally doesn't. I mean, a lot of time doesn't do any of the writing, really.
His palette of work is focused on more of like a family-friendly fare for the most part. You know, he
Deadpool? I didn't know that was family-friendly.
He was the creative force behind Night at the Museum franchise and the Real Steel movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's also
a heavy collaborator with Ryan Reynolds. They did Free Guy together last year and the Adam Project for Netflix.
Well, Hugh Jackman was Real Steel, so there you go.
Yeah.
It's all coming together now.
And now he's working on the 3rd Deadpool, which of course is, like you said, Hugh Jackman's coming back. This is like his first like rated R work too. He doesn't dip his toe into that hard stuff. He sticks with family. So his film will most likely be PG-13. That's around his wheelhouse.
That's what the average Star Wars film is these days, too.
It's in line with his creative sensibilities.
Assuming this actually happens. Well, I mean, it's so strange because we keep hearing that, Kennedy's not allowed to make any decisions about Star Wars films, and yet we constantly hear about people perhaps making Star Wars films.
Well, we don't know if he's actually going to be working on a project that's we've heard of already in the works, or if he's doing a brand new project.
I guess.
Because we've been hearing writers doing this, writers doing that.
Yeah, we hear so much.
He's just probably attached with one of those writers.
I mean, I think there's truth to the rumor that Kennedy has been, to put it bluntly, told to shut up and stop announcing things or letting things. But she's not. It's the funny thing. Like, she's not, coming out and saying, I mean, she has said some things. I'm not trying to defend her or attack her. I'm simply saying a lot of these things kind of come out as rumors. This time it's coming out as the actual director saying he's... So it's not really a rumor as much as it's something is in the works or in talks.
And with that news comes the news that J.D. Dillard is no longer working on a Star Wars project.
So we just replaced the one potential project with another potential project.
His project was reported February in 2020.
His was official, too.
Yeah, that was the Hollywood Reporter, that he and Matt Owens will be working on a Star Wars movie of some kind.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, as you said.
But I guess that's not happening because there's been 3 years of silence on that. That's not in the works anymore.
It's just crazy. What is going on? How can they not get a movie made? I mean, seriously, if the next one somehow hits 2025, which is there is a scheduled pending release date, that's 6 years between The Rise of Skywalker and whatever is next. That is not what the plan was when you bought Lucasfilm.
Let's move on to our next article today. This one's more fun. Mandalorian cast on the themes Season 3 will explore.
Ooh.
Yes. Entertainment Weekly released a video interview with some of the main cast of Mandalorian Season 3, as well as their director and executive producer, Rick Famuyiwa. I mean, they talked about shooting the new season and what we could possibly expect in some story and themes. Famuyiwa said that about where the character's journey has been up until this point and how it's kind of being expanded into new territory in the 3rd season. He said, "The exciting part about Mandalorian is that it started with this very simple and sort of elemental relationship when the Mandalorian met this young child and how it's affected him. And I think all the decisions he's made since coming in contact with the child that sort of raised the stakes in terms of the storytelling of the show. We've just been following that to this sort of natural place as he's experienced meeting people outside of his own creed and understanding what it means to be a Mandalorian. So as we get to Season 3, it's really sort of a culmination of that. We've started with our original Mandalorian, but as the teaser said, he's not the only one, and what does that mean? So this season is really kind of bringing all that together. Katie Sackhoff added to that. She said, coming into this season, Bo has some clear ideas about who she believes to be a real Mandalorian, and I think that is really an important place for her to start. She was raised one way, she thinks one very clear way, and her knowledge of that is being challenged. One of the things about Bo that I love, and we see a lot of in this season, is that she's always growing and she's always evolving. And I think that's a really beautiful lesson.
Well, she's come a long way from Clone Wars.
She really has.
Much different character. I mean, some people say it's some odd changes because they kept him rather quickly. Mm-hmm. But no, a much different character from Clone Wars.
Yeah, oh my goodness,
When you first see her in Clone Wars, I should say. By the end of Clone Wars, she's already kind of changed. But it's going to happen.
Emily Swallow, who plays the Armorer, she might have a larger role in this season. She says, one of the things that I really appreciate about the Armorer is that she never shies away from a challenge. She's most of the time enjoyed someone else having to deal with the challenges, but I don't think she shies away from them for herself. After that, she kind of starts stumbling over her words because she's trying to say without saying.
Well, yeah.
Because I feel like she's going to have a throwdown with Bo. Bo-Katan, the Armorer.
Well, we saw her whooping some stormtroopers in Season 1 or 2, whatever that was, yeah.
Well, I think, judging from the trailer, they're saying something to the effect of, like, it seems like maybe Bo-Katan might blame her for, like, Mandalore falling. She took a group of Mandalorians and left or something.
Yeah, there's some kind of split that happened.
Yeah, and their religious nature, zealotism, they left.
Yeah, and put their helmets on and didn't take them off.
But they weren't there when Mandalore needed them.
Yeah, where were you when Mandalore fell? Where were you?
Giancarlo Esposito gave the following beautiful speech about what the show means to him and stuff. He started out by saying, Moff Gideon would really like to be a Mandalorian, and there's a reason for that. That's his psychological real problem. He really wants to be a Mandalorian because the strength and power of the Mandalorians is not necessarily that they are individuals. It's that they are part of a group that have an ideal and a morality. And that to me is really powerful in our story. This journey this guy takes, Din Djarin, is in such a beautiful way is the struggle. And we hear it in his voice, we see it in his body. There's something about duty and being in the service and action, and it galvanizes him to have to do it. And within that, I'm like, oh, I'm done now. But no, wait a minute. I still have to learn something about who? Me. And it's phenomenal. And how do you resist that unjaded personality that allows you to see where you came from? How can you resist that? You hate that little child for a minute. You hate that because it's showing you what you were, and then you became this effing warrior. So all the elements of the story really intrigue me and allow me to be really thankful and grateful to be in this universe. Like, he's right. I mean, the characterization of the Mandalorian changed so much with the addition of the child, and it didn't make him weaker, it made him stronger.
Yeah. Well, it's all about family, right? That's Star Wars' theme, or one of them.
It really is. It's a driving theme.
Yeah, family gives you something to fight for in a lot of cases. Something more than the self, which is what Star Wars boils down to. Selfless versus selfish.
Absolutely. Then they kind of went on to some funnier stuff. So then the three armor wearers, Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and the Armorer, started complaining kind of about their costumes. Talking about how they are worried in most scenes that they're going to trip over something because there's no peripheral vision in those helmets.
Isn't it funny how, like, in reality, a lot of the costumes you see them wearing would just... I mean, they have, obviously, vision in the, in universe. Their visors actually work. Mm-hmm. But it's funny how a lot of the costumes you see in Star Wars just are not practical at all. Or in a lot of movies and shows, of course.
No, not at all. And they were complaining about the mic sets because they're in the uniform and they are still talking within them. And it's hilarious because apparently they store the mic pack up in the helmet next to their skulls. And Din Djarin and the Armor are both complaining because it's not very comfortable. It's just like wedged in there against their head all day. And then Katie's like, well, why do you not ask them to put it in the breastplate? And like, well, they said you can't do that. You can't put it in the breastplate. It doesn't work. And she goes, well, I got them to make it work. So she managed to persuade them to put it in her breastplate, and it still works just fine. Whereas the other two are struggling on with it in their heads.
In there. I like you said in their heads, not their helmets, in their heads.
Yeah. She actually prefers doing her acting within the helmet because she says it reminds her of being in the recording studios. I mean, you're kind of isolated to yourself, reading the lines, and that's obviously where bo-katan's character, where Kitty Sackhoff comes from.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that before with Clone Wars and Rebels. I mean, season 2 of Mandalorian was the first time we saw Bo in live action.
It was also funny because they said another reason she seems to prefer to act within the helmet is when she takes the helmet off and she's acting, they tell her to stop because her face isn't doing what Bo-Katan's face would do. It's doing what Katie Sackhoff's face would do.
That's got to be rough because, you know, it's based off animation and she doesn't control. I mean, like you said, she's in a studio somewhere.
Yep, and so she's not moving her face the way that Bo-Katan used to do it from the Clone Wars. So
interesting.
So it's a challenge. As soon as she takes the helmet off, she's like, "Ooh,
here we go.
Here we go. How is my face supposed to move as Bo-Katan versus how it would move as Katie Sackhoff really reading the lines in the recording studio?"
The challenges of going from animation to live action. I'm glad they pay that much attention.
The others don't have that problem. I mean, their first appearance was here, so how they move their face is how they move their face.
It's going to be curious with Rebels. I mean, Rebels is going to have a lot of character, you know, Ezra, Sabine, probably Hera.
Well, even, and Ahsoka having to get those iconic looks
Ahsoka,
and movements down because those are the characters.
I mean, we've seen Ahsoka a bit. I think Rosario does a decent job at it. I think it's very hard to go from, I think, animation to live action.
Yeah.
It's much easier, I think, obviously, to do it the other way around, to put a character in the animation, but I think she did a pretty decent job so far.
I agree.
Yeah. But no, it'll be interesting to see Ezra and all these other characters if they're going to try to do some of the same.
Yeah, because Ezra has a lot of
he has a lot of little
cocks.
He has a lot of little quirks. Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully they nail those because it will almost you might not notice it, but your brain will subconsciously notice it. You'll be like, that's not quite.
Yeah.
Ezra.
And granted, I think Ezra will be different. You know, it's not like he's going to be the kid anymore. Same with Sabine being younger. They're going to be older, yet at the same time, you do want to, you want to fill that gap and make them feel like the same characters. All right, well, that's all we got for you this time, so take to the comments below. Tell us what you think of any and all of today's news. What do you think is going on with Star Wars movies? You think we're ever going to get another one at this point? And who's going to direct the dang thing? Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.